Hey everybody, welcome back. Are you having trouble finding fuel? Are you? Did you fill your tank before it got too late? I hope you did. That would have been the smart thing to do. That would have been the prepper-minded thing to do, would be to put some gas in your tank ahead of time. Get ahead of the problem, right? But a lot of people did not, and now there are shortages all across the southeast. And I'm in Georgia right now, and I put up an image the other day of a bagged pump, and that's all you're seeing, especially the big chain stations like Racetrack and Quick Trip. They're all bagged except for diesel. Diesel's available, apparently, but the rest of the stuff is not really. And the prices are getting up there. They've jumped again quite a bit in some instances. And I have relatives in South Carolina, and they've been seeing the same thing. Everything's bagged up. So gas shortages across the board, courtesy of a group called Darkside, apparently, taking a hint from DC Comics. So gas shortages across the board, and there's a lot of speculation being thrown around about this. And I'm going to read you something from Newsweek here. It says gas shortages update as almost 1,800 stations run dry. Drivers panic, buy fuel. And I'm pretty sure it's more than 1,800 stations, since I'm hearing this not only from Georgia, well, I'm seeing it in Georgia, and hearing it from North Carolina, South Carolina, from Florida. A lot of places are complaining about this. Virginia, I'm sure it's more than 1,800 stations at this point. And just read some of this here really quickly. It says gas stations across the southeast have run out of fuel as drivers panic bought days after the nation's biggest fuel pipeline halted operations due to a cyber attack. The Colonial Pipeline, which delivers about 45% of the fuel consumed on the East Coast, was hit by a ransomware attack on Friday. And it's like, okay, but you know, being in the South, I also know that a lot of the petroleum that is used, especially in Georgia, comes in through shipping in Savannah. So how is that impacting us that much that quickly? Basically, what they're trying to do is make it look like panic buying is what's actually responsible for the shortage, not the fact that they had to shut down temporarily and divert petroleum also, but they have really pushed it in social media that panic buying individuals are what's really responsible. And something I had brought up the other day talking about Social Security cards and how that tied into the New Deal back in 1935. During World War II, one of the things that was thrown on the American consumer was shaming people for buying sugar. And they refer to them as sugar hoarders. And media embarrassed these people, shamed them for buying too much sugar because of sugar shortages, and artificial demand was created around sugar shortages. And you're seeing this now here with the fuel. And the article goes on to say social media has been awash with videos of long lines at gas stations across southeastern states, including North Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia. Some have shared photos of people filling up numerous containers with fuel. There are a handful of people that are doing that, but also a lot of those pictures that are circulating on social media are really old photos that you can pick up on Bing Images or Google Images really easily. So don't be misled by a lot of those images you see on social media. They want to blame people for fuel hoarding, and they want to blame people who are trying to top off tanks or get an extra can of gas for an emergency as being responsible for the entire network crashing. And that's not what happened. What happened was, because of ransomware and the lack of a backup system, they had to shut down the fuel. They had to shut down the pipeline temporarily. And that is what has caused the shortage, really. Not necessarily panic buying. So you can't throw that all on panic buying and pretend like that's the issue. It's really kind of childish. And also, again, a lot of petroleum that comes in, especially in the southeast, comes in through shipping. So where's that extra petroleum going? Well, it's being spread around. So they're going to take it from one area and they're going to spread it out, because to avoid a complete real shutdown in one geographic area, they would rather see sporadic problems across the board. It's kind of like if you grew up in the 70s and 80s or even in the 60s, you might remember roving brownouts. Who's old enough to remember roving brownouts from the electric companies, especially on the east and west coast, where the power would dim and come back up and dim and come back up, and that would happen off and on all day long, especially during the summer. And the reason that the power company would do that, they'd cut the juice and turn it up and cut the juice and turn it up, was to prevent an actual crash, an actual blackout from occurring where the whole grid goes down, sometimes for the entire day, sometimes for several days. It was better to just dim it out and let it come up and dim it out and let it come up and control it than to have it crash and then have to fix all of that. And that's kind of what's going on now, where they're taking whatever they have and spreading it out, trucking it around further than it probably would normally go, and preventing one whole zone from having a complete collapse. They'd rather see just everybody straining across the board than have one whole piece of the map go dark as far as fuel. They're not going to tell you that, because then you're going to sit there and say, well, what makes them better than us? How come they get to take some of ours because they're having a problem? As people have that attitude, and I can see where they would probably not want to tell people if that's what they're doing, because I'm speculating there just based on logic that that's part of what's going on until they get the pipeline fully flowing again. And there ought to be redundancies, and they ought to have backup systems for if that system is compromised, that they can switch over, like at a power plant. For some reason, they do not have that capacity, or were not able to do it. Whatever the reason, they were not able to switch over, or they don't have a backup to switch over to. That's the assumption. That's my assumption anyways. Somebody might know better than me, and feel free to tell me in the comment section if you know better, because there's a lot of speculation to go around. There's a lot of speculation to go around, but you can't blame the shortage. You already shut the pipe off for a time period and are slowly bringing it back up. You can't sit there and say because a handful of people filled an extra gas can that it's people hoarding fuel that's the problem. That's not the problem. The problem is that you got hacked in the first place and you were not able to handle it. And you don't have a backup in place to manage a problem like that, unfortunately. Thoughts? Feel free to post them in the comment section down below. Please do give the video a thumbs up if you got anything out of that. Share it if you can, probably the only way it'll get seen. Subscribe if you're new. Check out some of the other videos if you have not. And if you wanted to help the channel out, there are links for that down below. Every little bit helps, and I sure do appreciate it. And what more can I say but stay frosty, folks, and thanks for watching.